Hello all you beautiful people out there, what is going on? This is your friend Barry coming at you fast with the final installment in the Ultimate Beginner Guide for Paragon. Today we're going to be talking about combat, everything you need to know about combat itself, the mechanics, abilities and what they do, how to use them, and also the communication system that is within the game and the importance of it, as well as, well, we're going to touch on rotation again because it's just that important. So, let's talk about combat. What you guys are seeing here is raw, unedited gameplay in bots. I wanted to make level 5 veteran bots, but the game, I guess, didn't register that and still put me at level 2, aka easy bots. So the bots here are going to be super duper easy compared to me, probably what you're used to. But one thing I would recommend is practicing all of these things that I'm talking about today in level 5 veteran bots. That's right, jump right into level 5 veteran bots. Don't be scared. Come on, the water's not that cold. It's all right. They're not that good, okay? I was going to say they're not that bad, but now I was going to say they're pretty bad still. So anyway, let's talk about what's going on here on the screen. I wanted you guys to see some mid lane gameplay because I believe the mid lane is just a really good way to illustrate this concept of combat. So let's talk about the basics. First off, when you're attacking, when you're throwing your basic attacks, when you're left clicking or when you're using your R2 on the gamepad on PS4, you're going to slow your movement speed for a while you're in the process of attacking. You're also going to have less movement speed when you are backpedaling. So if you're trying to run away from a sticky situation, make sure you just turn 180 degrees and run back the other way. Now, about running. If you're far away from the opponent and they're throwing auto attacks at you, they're slowing themselves down, which means the distance between you two is increasing. If that's the case, just run straight and get out of there as fast as you can. If they're somewhat close to you and they have a pretty good aim and they're tracking you pretty well, run in zigzags or unpredictable patterns. Make it hard for the enemy to predict your behavior. Why? Because you have to lead your shots in this game. Exactly. You got the answer. You have to lead your shots, and this changes with the distance being farther or shorter, which makes it kind of difficult for newer players to readjust and understand how to actually do this properly, but this will get better just with playing the game more and more. So, one more thing I should mention is that your basic attacks stack up against basic armor. So when you see that stat in the card builder or in the gems, that's what that means. Basic armor blocks basic attacks, just a damage that you do with your left click or your R2. Now ability armor blocks abilities, which, you guessed it, stops ability damage from the abilities that you cast using the other buttons that are given to you. Just so you know. I tell you guys this because it's important to analyze your opponent and figure out what they're building by opening up the scoreboard, which is tab on the computer, or the touchpad on the controller. Now, one thing to note is that you should not be reckless. Please don't be reckless. It's more important to stay alive and get farm than try and chase somebody who's low health and end up dying. Because chances are, if you chase them pretty far, you're going to get stuck on the enemy side of the map, and you're going to be all alone, and the enemy can be ganging up on you, and you're done. It's like a school of sharks just about to destroy you. Actually, I don't know if sharks travel in schools. But anyway, last thing, for the love of Grux, please rotate when possible. Notice how when my lane and mid lane is pushed up, I'm constantly moving around the map. I'm rotating. I'm trying to get these kills. I'm helping duo lane in this video because I want to make it just uniform and simple for you guys to observe. I'm not going to off lane even though I should be going to solo lane as well. Solo lane, off lane, same thing because it's off to the side. But I help get the kills over here for duo lane and get on out of there. So don't be afraid to rotate. Rotating is important. You play with your team, be a team player, secure kills, and then secure objectives like this tower. That is how you become most efficient. And that's about it when it comes to combat. Everything else, for the basic mechanics anyways, you guys will experience in-game and grow in-game. Now let's talk about abilities and their effects, specifically once I clear my throat. Excuse me. So there is a thing called crowd control. There's hard crowd control and there is soft crowd control. Crowd control involves abilities that control the crowd, that affect the ability of the enemy to do things, right? Because you control them, literally, in the word. So hard crowd control is something that prevents them from using any ability, not just from being incapacitated, from being unable to move, but they also cannot use abilities. This includes stuns, and this includes knockups, and I believe it also includes roots. This has always been a contested theory, and only because it's hard to judge what's a root and what's a tether. For example, Sevarog Subjugate is a root. From my experience, I don't know if they changed it recently, you cannot use abilities while you are rooted in Sevarog's Subjugate ability. But Kwang's Tether, if you are tethered by Kwang's Tether, that's technically a root because you can't move, but you can still use your ability. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there. But if you're still confused, just know that stuns and knockups, where you physically cannot cast an ability, are hard crowd control. And soft crowd control include stuff where you're just either one or the other. You either can't cast abilities or your movement is incapacitated. So like a silence means you can't cast abilities, you can still move, but you cannot cast abilities. That's like Drongo's Tear Gas. Or slows. Your movement speed is botched, but you can still use your abilities. So one or the other. Either your ability usage, your ability agency is botched, or your movement speed is slowed, or you can't move at all. That's pretty much, that's the difference. So, again, hard crowd control has both effects. Your movement speed, something to do with your movement speed, is detrimented. And then also, you cannot use abilities, or anything else for that matter. Whereas soft, it's one or the other. So, examples, like I said, silence for Drongo Tear Gas. Slow, like a Rampage Rumble. A stun, like a Decker Stasis Bomb. Like I said earlier, a root, like Sevarog Subjugate. And a knockup, aka Bellica's Seismic Assault. So those are some examples. There are also abilities that do damage over time. You're going to see these abbreviated as DOT, with the D and the T being capitalized. This includes Morigesh Hive and Iggy's Blaze ability. Damage over time, exactly how it sounds. You attack them, and then over a couple of seconds, they take a little bit extra damage, however much that might be. This is good for slowing down enemies. This is good for proccing certain abilities or cards that block instances. For example, Shield has a passive that gives him ability armor. It's called Ablative Armor, and this stacks 4 times. So if he's affected by a damage over time ability, like Iggy's Blaze, that armor is going to shred very quickly, because each instance, even though the ability damage is very little, it still shreds a stack of that armor. So that's a good way to use such abilities. Now you want to use all of these abilities together with your teammates in conjunction to lock down opponents. Timing is key. Now, at most max level crowd control abilities, they last a duration of about 2 seconds. You can stun somebody for 2 seconds. Either 1.5 seconds or 2 seconds, that's usually the average amount of time once you upgrade the ability to the 4th tier with the 4 ticks. Now, this on its own, 2 seconds doesn't sound like a lot of time, and it's reasonable in a MOBA. It's arguably a bit too much in this one, but it's reasonable. But now imagine 2 times 3. 6 seconds. You have a Rampage Rock, you have a Decker Stasis Bomb, and then you have a Faye Ultimate. Her big ass plane. And plus a Bramble Patch, so it's slow. So you're basically cannot do anything at all, and you're stuck in place for 6 seconds. Or a Gideon Ultimate like that, which lasts 3 seconds. You're stuck there for 6 seconds. You cannot do anything at all. That's a lifetime in a MOBA, by the way. That's a lot of time for the enemy team to damage you. So, crowd control, in this case, will always be king. You always want to use your abilities at the right time. You want to use your crowd control to either prevent them from escaping, to help yourself escape, or to lock them down in a team fight or just in general while they're rotating, so you can help your teammates aim and secure kills on stationary targets. That is very important in crowd control. Don't just go using it willy-nilly. Use it to combat the enemy smartly. Now, for example, when Gideon uses his ultimate, he uses that ultimate for 3 seconds all around him to lock down the enemies. He stuns them, they cannot move, and they get dragged to his core. Now, if you are a Decker on the enemy team, you would be wise to save your Stasis Bomb, to save your stun, and to use it when he uses that ability, because stuns cancel other abilities. That's also the amazing thing about stuns and knockups and hard crowd control, is that they cancel abilities. Like I said, anything and everything they cannot do when they are applied by a hard crowd control ability, including using their abilities, even if they're in the middle of one. so it cancels abilities as well. And that's pretty much the difference between hard and soft and how important crowd control is. So make sure you time it well, you use it right in fights. That's very, very important, and coordinate with your teammates as well. So now, communication. Communication is key. And throughout this game, if you guys have been keen and noticing, I've been using comms, short for communications, the entire time. Now these comms occur in the bottom right underneath your minimap, so you can see, and they linger there for about 4 to 5 seconds, so you can see what your teammates are calling out. They also ping in the bottom left where the chat box is. It will say the name in blue, and then it will say the ping in white. Now this is also a place for chatting, but it's pretty obvious to see which one's a comm and which one's just a regular chat. For example, my team just said ultimate ready in the bottom left, which means I know that, hey, it says team because it's a bot game, but it would be a specific person, and I'd say, hey, I know their ultimate is ready, and now I can pair up with them and deal a massive combo. So in order to use these communications, you would press C on a keyboard, the right D-pad if you're using default controls, and if you're using legacy controls, then it would be L1. If you don't know what your controls are, if you have not changed anything at all and you're playing on PS4 controller, you would be using default, so you would use right D-pad. And you would open up the comms menu. Now, if you're using a mouse, what you would do is you would just click in the direction of whatever phrase you want, and then there would be a chain of passcodes and phrases. It looks very complicated and confusing at first, but trust me, the more you use it, the better you'll get, and the better muscle memory you'll get. It'll actually be kind of scary at how good you become. At least that's how I don't even think about it. I just go do. Okay. I can't even tell you really which way to go for certain comms just because it's mostly my muscles doing the thinking and not my brain. But I will tell you some comms that are very important. On the controller, however, to use these comms, what you do is you open it up with the right D-pad or L1 like mentioned earlier, and then you use the triangle, the square, the circle, or the X to choose in the direction, and the directions correspond to the direction that they are oriented on your PS4 controller, so it becomes a bit more intuitive, which is what I really, really like. Now, let's talk about important ones. Attack, defend, retreat, careful, enemies missing, on my way, and wards. Enemies missing is very important. Anytime the enemy leaves your lane, or even if they back, just ping, enemies missing right lane, enemies missing middle lane, enemies missing left lane, or just enemies missing in general. Okay, anything like that will help your team orient themselves and pay attention to the map, because it's really hard to be looking at the map the entire time, and using comms like that will help your team a lot. Now, some recommended ones are ultimate ready, be right back, objectives, good job, and thanks. Ultimate ready helps with the thanks. Ultimate ready helps with the team fights. Be right back helps your team coordinate with you better. Objectives help orient your team to do certain objectives, and everything and anything in between. So those are recommended. Those aren't as crucial as the other ones to the survivability and the helpfulness of your team, but learning all of those would be pretty important. Everything else is kind of just nice flair. The reason I had a good job and thanks in there is because it's nice to be a good person, okay? But don't be toxic, don't be sarcastic, and don't spam good job. That's a running joke since forever in Paragon, but please don't be that guy. Nobody likes that guy. And also, if you're playing with a mouse and keyboard, what you can do is you can actually hold the shift button and click on the minimap to produce little blue exclamation points to act as pings or actual markers on the map for your team, but you should still stick to comms because most people pay attention to that, not so much the pings on the map. And that's about it, guys. So that concludes the Ultimate Beginner Guide. I taught everything you guys need to know to be successful in starting your Paragon journey, and I will continue to make builds, tips, and tricks on this video, on this channel. I don't know why I said on this video. After this video and on this channel for all of you and everybody else who needs help with Paragon, not just beginners, but intermediate and even advanced players as well. So if I miss something, chances are I'm going to cover it. Chances are I'm going to make lane-specific guides and deck-specific guides and all of the above and everything in between. And thank you so much for being on this amazing journey with me, and hopefully you guys enjoy Paragon as much as I do. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy, please drop a like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you haven't already. As always, make sure you have a wonderful day.